This is the Wealthy Retailer Podcast with your host, Dan Holman. Every episode, Dan talks with a variety of retail experts, owners, managers, and so much more, sharing their expertise, their experiences, and the retail topics that matter to you, the independent retailer. The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast this morning. Super excited today. I have someone that I refer to as my brother from another mother. We are synonymous in a lot of the ways that we think and what we do with our retail community. And so I'm going to introduce Scott Smith. He's probably not a stranger to you if you've been in and around the circle of Canadian Retail Solutions or Management One. And if you're in ski and snow and active sports, you've heard Scott's name before. Scott has spent a lifetime in retail, and the success of the independent retailer has been his lifelong passion from his beginnings of, I'm going to say this quietly, Scotty, so I don't age us, but 30 plus years ago, working on a sales floor in a small outdoor store, he's worked through every avenue of retail, every level: operations, marketing, merchandising, technology, training, administration, and even today in his life as one of the premier retail coaches out there, he still spends his days coaching not just retailers, but retail experts, guys like me, influencing our outlook on retail. So Scott, man, oh man, I am so proud to have you on the podcast. Happy to see you again. Even though we're not a handshake and a hug away, it's good to see your face, brother.
Oh, it's absolutely great to see you too, mate. What an intro. Thank you very much for that, mate. You're choking me up.
But it's all real.
Always a pleasure to spend time with you, my brother.
Yeah. So here we are. We're rolling into holiday for 2021. Been a weird, crazy year. Lots of great, awesome stories and some not so great. But me, I don't want to talk about the shit. I want to talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about some good success that we've seen in retail this year and what we think this holiday season is going to look like for your retailers.
Mate, I love it because there has been, during this kind of horrible period over the last couple of years, there's just been some fantastic highlights. And I know sometimes I think we feel guilty to talk about the good stuff, but I think it's really healthy and important to talk about the good stuff. Mate, I'll tell you the one thing that stands out to me, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing. For good retailers that have mapped themselves out through this period of time, I have never seen a better position for a lot of retailers we're working for in terms of where their inventory is at the moment, where they're that vital and most critical element of the business. I'm having conversation after conversation with large retailers, smaller retailers, everything in between, pinching themselves saying, hey, I think we're in one of the best positions that we've been in, both financially and inventory position for a long, long time. It's kind of uncanny.
Yeah, agreed. And I guess, some of that is because of the consequence, perhaps, of, having to get out of inventory and maybe pulling back on some inventory earlier last year as things started to get rolling, but also retailers recognizing that if I don't fix my buying, I won't be here tomorrow.
The necessity breeds invention.
Yeah. And I think that for a lot of us, we'll say this quietly, COVID's been good to us. It's taught us some things about the business that we have ignored. No matter how loud you and I speak, it does take some realization that, hang on a second, I got to make some change. And we've seen retailers scale back. We've seen retailers narrow up inventory, and we've seen others that have broadened their marketplace by bringing in new avenues of inventory or new avenues of revenue in categories. Have you seen that in some of your stores? People expanding their categorical display?
Absolutely. It has never been. You and I, we've preached this for so many years when we talk about understanding our categories in the business. I've never seen such an incredible awareness of categorization in the businesses. And yes, I have seen narrowing, and I've seen very, very good buying specific to the classes. But I've also seen, classifications that they wouldn't have dreamt, retailers wouldn't have dreamt that they would have been in before, but they're in now, and they've captured new markets, new audience, new customers at the same time. But truly because they've been aware of those classifications, it's been incredible. I tell you, the one thing that I've noticed very significantly is good buyers have risen to the surface. And I'll tell you what, for every retailer out there that's listening to this right now, make sure that you're looking after your buyers. Make sure that you're paying them really well. Make sure that you value, that they are absolutely key, because the narrowing, the confidence in the classes, the decisions that they've made to be very, very analytic and very specific about what they're doing in these classifications has made, I've seen greatness, Dan. Like, I've just seen greatness in that way. And I've seen the transformation of stores to look so much better. Like, so many of us, like, you and I talk about this all the time, all things to all people is not a way to live in retail. Right. Confidence as a buyer to be able to show people and extract the decision from the consumer and make the decision because you're the expert. And then all of a sudden this store looks absolutely beautiful. And you go into it and you get the experience of like, man, these guys know what they're doing. Like, I've seen a lot of that and so, like you said, forcefully, because we've had this COVID issue, we've had to really make sure that we're on point. But all of a sudden we've got this store that's just, looking idyllic now because we've made confident decisions that we've had to.
Right. I totally agree. And so I just want to rewind a little bit. If you're the buyer, if you have buyers, you have to recognize how difficult this period has been, how much harder they've had to work, not just in understanding what to buy, but even to access inventory. We are constantly buying, and if we think about some of our, outdoor stores, probably outdoor stores buy further out than anyone else does, certainly absolutely. Much further out than fashion, way further out than home goods and accessories. And we're seeing them chasing inventory every month. And it's on the buyer that they've never had to do before. They do their 6, 8, 12 month in advance buy, adjust along the way, fill in small categories, those complementary classifications around it. But now they're chasing goods in every category all day long. And one of the things that you said that I love was we got to pay them more. We got to make sure they're well looked after. We've got to keep them close. So I've got a question that comes from that. How do we measure our buyer performance to know where we should be rewarding them? What things should we be, as retailers, be focused on to really reward a buyer?
Oh, man, that's a great question. And you know what? I will say that has been, from what I've seen, the failing grace of in the retail life that I've seen in the past. The failing grace in the fact that many retailers that we get in front of reward their buyers for increasing sales. And you and I both understand that element alone can get you in a lot of trouble. I've walked in a lot of stores, and I can walk in that store straight away and go, this buyer is incented by sales only. Because I'm chock-a-block, I'm potentially in the wrong classifications, I'm all over the place. I think that the key that we have to realize is that we've got to reward on inventory efficiency and sales as a combination. We've got to understand how important turn is along with margin. To understand that we've got to have, and this is what I love. I love that we work with these KPIs with our retailers, and that we measure not only the success of an increasing sales position in a particular class, but the efficiency of that inventory, the freshness of that inventory, how vital is it? And like you said, exactly, Dan, the days of setting it and forgetting it as a retail buyer, they're gone.
Right.
Like we are, if we're not into an open to buy on a monthly, daily, weekly basis, if we're not, attacking that inventory, fast fashion has taught us a lot in that way, right? We do have a lot of verticals, like you say, in outdoor, where we don't have the luxury of doing that kind of thing. but it doesn't mean we can't be looking for efficient ways to build new things for that customer to look at on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. That to me is the story. Measurements that measure the effective turns of a classification, the efficiency and freshness of a classification. Like that to me is where we have to really kind of land for a good buyer incentive program for sure.
And I feel this is worth repeating. You know, buyers that are incentivized on sales performance alone don't make you more money, they make you less money.
Oh, so true, Dan. So
you know,
true.
That's a focus on the top line instead of the bottom line. Profitability in any retail business comes from our ability to generate cash flow. Generating cash flow comes from our ability to buy the right inventory at the right time and turn that inventory over. The set it and forget it never makes us more money. And I have this constant, battle with retailers about their margin. I don't care where your gross margin is. Gross margin is a measurement of what you sold, not what you bought. What you
so
bought.
True.
We've got to focus more energy on inventory efficiency, inventory turn, and the margin, the cash margin that we generate in a category. And then profitability will follow that. Not just profitability, but cash flow will follow that. And I sometimes apologize, and I do it maybe a bit in jest to my retailer, Scott. I apologize for always sounding like I am, this cash monger, that all I care about is cash, but cash is queen. Or for some that say cash is king, I say, well, good, cash can be king, but cash flow is our queen. And cash flow doesn't come from sales, it comes from buying.
Yes.
And we get mixed up sometimes. And I had actually a conversation this morning with a retailer that I talked to her about, stop focusing, on the top line number. The top line number isn't the most important one. And not very long ago, I was in Vegas a few weeks ago, speaking to some retailers, and, put your hand up if you would rather have higher sales or higher profitability. And 8 out of 10 people put their hand up for higher sales. Like, how backward ass is that? I want higher sales. No, we don't. You don't need to be a $3 million organization. You need to be a $2 million organization at 15% profitable, not a $3 million at 1.5% profit.
I am really proud to say that, the retailers we work with, they really get that now. And, this is why, we can, again, I under my breath, I don't want to say celebrating through such a nasty period of time, but celebrating the efficiency of your inventory, celebrating that you have the right amount of stock in the right classification, and then building upon that to look ahead of yourself and know that what you're moving into, whether it be 6 weeks away or 6 months away, is exactly that efficient position. And then the evolution of the way the store looks, and as we talked about before, the way that the customer will now have this really easy to shop place, this really defined area to shop. That to me is the celebration. And yes, okay, sales, great. There's always two parts to the story, but it does not come one without the other. If we're not turning goods and we're not efficient, we can sell as much as our heart's desire, and we will still look at the bank account, and we will still be sweating to pay those staff or to get the rent paid on a month-to-month basis. It's one of those things we don't really most retailers, I'll say, that I meet for the first time are very, very focused. Like you said, 8 out of 10 put their hands up for sales, but then you'll see that same 8 out of 10, I guarantee you, in the background, are sweating on a month-to-month basis when it comes to being able to pay their bills.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree. And something I want to go back to, I do advocate for celebration in bad times. I don't, for me, COVID, Scott, is really just an excuse for us not to be better. We allow it to become our excuse, not our reason. Now, that isn't the case for everyone. There has definitely been horrible things that have happened through this pandemic that, if I could rewind the clock for someone, I would love to do that. But I will also say that it was our point of recognition that hey, we're going to celebrate this in amongst all this bad shit that's going on. We're going to celebrate this little milestone that we just achieved.
Yes.
And our ability to get retailers to look at the positive, not the negative, is what moves the needle forward. Man, misery loves company. We could spend all day in the can shit talking all the bad stuff that's going on, and we don't move forward. But if we can just focus on one positive thing every time we're engaged with them, we can replicate positivity just as easy as we replicate negativity.
Oh man, I could not agree more. Like I truly believe, and will go to the grave believing this, is that optimism is the strongest driver in a business. And you know what? I think and I believe that we live with self-fulfilling prophecies in retail. Yeah. This is what I think about having a plan. We will fulfill that prophecy if we put ourselves in the right. Man, we are bombarded right now with all of the negative sides. Like you and I, we're fighting ourselves to probably not talk about supply chain right now and how much an issue that is, because it's just being bombarded with us. And it's so hard. It is more difficult to focus on the positive than it is to focus on the negative, but it is way more effective to do so. If you set your sights on where you want to be, like in my lifetime, and I'll say like it's been miraculous. It's been miraculous what I've seen people do when they're focused on doing something. And you know what? It goes a long way. It goes right into the attitude. That if I could take one thing that I've seen for retailers over the years that has been the most successful trait, it is absolutely optimism and positivity. I will say, like I can see that in the hundreds and thousands of retailers that I've interacted with over the years, and the ones that rise to the top are the ones that are positive, optimistic, driving, looking for the best in people, looking for the best in the situation.
Yeah, for sure. I find myself as I get engaged with someone that's falling onto that negative side, I just quickly say, all right, awesome, okay, close the door, shut her down, and let's go find a job somewhere else. Whoa, hang on a second, Dan. Hold on. That's not what I meant. I'm like, well, that's the way it's happening. There is so much opportunity if we look at the glass half full. And you're right. Optimism in retail is what drives us forward. It's not arrogance and cocky. It's confidence in focusing on the things that we do well, not the things that we don't do well. We identify what we don't do well, and we have to work on correcting that. But if we replicate positivity, if we replicate the good things that are happening, the bad stuff falls away from us. Yep. We stop doing the bad shit.
Exactly. Like when I review with clients, the situations they're in, or even on our analytical side, it's opportunity and correction. It's with a focus on opportunity. How can we find that moment that will take us to the next level? Oh, sure, we're going to have to correct things along the way. We're going to have to fix things. We're going to have to recognize that this was a fail, and we're going to chuck it and move on. That's totally fine. Unless we have that side of it too, we don't build on the opportunities without it.
Right. I mean, just think about how we maintain our car. We're correcting deficiencies as we're driving down the road. Hey, wait a minute. I got to change my oil. I'm getting a flat tire. I got to correct it. My car's pulling a little bit. Okay, well, it's a small correction that fixes that. Retail isn't any different. There are small corrections that keep us going in the right direction. As long as we know what that direction is, as long as we know where that dot on the map is, we're going in the right direction. And that's part of, perhaps realigning your team on that vision, on that dot on the map. Yeah. One other thing you touched on, I love right now that there is this barrage out there of supply chain challenge. I love it. I don't dislike it at all. I'm like, yes, there's a challenge in supply. That's what the consumer is hearing. They're going to make quicker buying decisions because their changing media is telling them it's going to be gone. Oh my God, Costco's not going to have Christmas trees.
I'm doing it. I see it in everyone around me, Dan, and I totally agree with you in that way. It's an opportunity because the mindset is being molded by by customers by the media and with customers at the moment. Right. We are all like, salivating dogs out there at the moment saying, I've got to get that pair of sneakers quickly because I know it's not going to be available. Costco has done the most brilliant job I've ever seen in retail of making us salivate over paddle boards in the spring because they're not going to be there when I want to go paddling in the summer. And you know what? The smart retailer is already living in that mode. They already know that they've got to chase goods. Like this is this is not a some kind of big news piece for a lot of the retailers we work with. We're chasing goods all the time. We're just pivoting. We're moving. We're looking at our assortment and we're saying, okay, whoa, maybe the top 2 vendors in the group can't bring us product right now, but where can I get it? What can I do? How can I move?
Yes.
How is she or he going to buy from me? And what can I do to make sure that she or he has something fulfilling in my store? Hey, if we're not talking and thinking that way, but before, after, any time throughout this crisis, then we're not doing the job. We're not doing the job,
Yeah.
The Wealthy Retailer podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com.
What do you say to your retailer that's pushing back right now on going to different or multiple trade shows? What are you saying to them? I got this question from a retailer, Dallas is coming up or Atlanta was coming up. I don't remember which one. Should I go? I'm like, well, my gosh, what a silly question. Of course you should go. Right now, you should be taking an opportunity to see as many new vendors as you can. And knowing your business, really having a solid analytical understanding of your categorical performance, your price point, your style, your color, everything that tells the story of your store allows you to go and find those new opportunities. If we just keep going back to the same old, well, eventually it runs out of water. And this is the challenge with retail today.
It totally is.
Same.
I think that one of the ways that I've noticed that buyers and retailers in general think about these trade shows, which is really I think not correct, is that they're going there to line up a series of appointments with the people that they've seen the last time they were at a show. And so many retailers that I talk to, I'm going to a trade show, like I'm booked from 7 o'clock in the morning to a breakfast meeting till 9 o'clock at night with all the people that I already know. Okay, that's fair enough. You've got to get in, you want to touch and feel the product, you want to see the new lines for the season, but what about what you don't know? And that's and so I couldn't agree more, Dan. Like right now, you have to be looking at broadening your scope. And there is no excuse at the moment, other than the obvious ones of travel restrictions and stuff like that you should be making an absolute effort to get in to see these different shows, go to these different markets, make sure that you're out there, because you just do not know what you do not know. And give yourself time specifically. Don't make appointments for one of those days. Walk the show, even, put your blinders on, just walk those aisles and look at things and kind of squint your eyes with the person and look at what they've got available and look and see if things kind of start to ping and look different to what you've done in the past. Oh, mate, it's critical right now.
And you should be setting 3 goals for yourself for every trade show. Goals. I meet new vendors. I find a new vendor. I get some level of education at every trade show I go to, right? I develop professionally. I take full advantage of any educational or any informative seminars that are in and around market. And I fill up my bucket. I add that day or 2 days onto the market trip that allows me to fill my bucket so that I can come back into my business and fill everybody else's. I always look when I went to market, and I was a guy that planned, here I am in the throes of holiday, planning already my January through June trade show travel. And I'm going to one a month or one every other month. And I'm picking the ones I want to go to. And I would go and buy, I'd buy at High Point when I was in the norm, a High Point's in October. And then in November, I'd slide down to Tupelo, Mississippi. Who wants to go to Tupelo, Mississippi? But, there was a trade show there. I was going to see a vendor maybe that I didn't know and give me that opportunity. And, I'd fill my bucket up. I'd do something that was for me that allowed me to have a better perspective coming back into my business. And I think that we miss out on some of that opportunity at trade shows. Look, you and I have been to every outdoor trade show, every apparel trade show on the continent. And, I can't think of one that I would say to myself, shit, I wish I wouldn't have gone there.
Yep. Never have.
I make a point
Absolutely.
of getting something out of it. And that's what retailers have to do, and push their buyers. Yes. Okay. We're going to park the travel restriction stuff. We're going to be on the positive side of life it's pretty well over now. Canada, US borders are now going to be open for free travel. Do what you want to do. Come and go as you please. We're going to see that same thing happen with Mexico, and we're going to see it happen with Europe. It's just all a matter of time. And if you're buying on the continental, in North America, then you should be going to 3, 4, 5 trade shows a year. And
absolutely
buying less more often.
Like you think of the one thing that we've done in our lives, Dan, is helped retailers think outside of the bubble that they're in. And that's the thing that I think that it's the curse of a retailer's attitude is the insular thinking that they have inside their business. You are influenced every day by the things that are right inside your bubble. Unless you're poking needles through the bubble to try and look outside of that, how do you even know that you can do anything better, that you can do anything different? And trade shows are just one example of bursting the bubble and seeing what it looks like outside. So, if you are, don't come out of COVID right now. Don't come out of this period thinking that you need to be more insular. It's the wrong thinking. Like, it's made us all like cocoon and nest. And, now, to me, now is the time. Be safe, of course, but get out there,
Get into more stores, look at what's going on around you. And that's the other thing that I always did. No matter what city I'm in, I always hit a store.
Yep.
I always hit the latest and greatest. Here we're in Vegas, we're at Caesars, at the shops, at the Forum shops, and Aritzia, a store that you and I probably know pretty well here in Western Canada. Aritzia is opening up a store in the shops. And I'm like, I got to go inside. I got to check this out. Like, this is crazy that we've got this, store that we would have looked at, 3, 4, 5 years ago and aspired to see our retailers be more like, now opening up a shop in Las Vegas. It's like, okay, now that's growth. And we see that. And so, here we're doing a pleasure trip, and I'm always adding in. I got to go into a store. I got to see what they're doing. Hey, I can pick any one of my clients and say, this store is a little bit like, Brad's store. I'm going to go in there and I want to see what, they're doing differently. And that's part of how I get filled up. And I'm not insular in my thinking. And so piggybacking on that being insular, I think we also get caught up in being too micro focused. We worry too much about what today's sales or yesterday's sales were, or last week, instead of, what is a bigger picture. I spend as much time looking at my last 90 days performance as I do my last 9 days. I want us to rise above it and say, wait a minute, let's pull the good out of this and replicate to move forward. And I think retailers get too caught up in, I talked to somebody this morning, and, this is it. Today's Wednesday. We're recording this on Wednesday for release on Thursday. And she's saying, oh my God, the week has been so slow. I'm like, hey, hang on a second. It's 9:00 Wednesday morning. Wednesday. The week has been so slow. I'm like, relish in a bit of quiet, because Thursday's coming and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, but we're focused on the week has been slow. No, it hasn't.
Yeah. It's like you say, it's that micro vision. It's that kind of insular mindset. And I think I agree with you completely. Like, take stock of a period. Take stock. Think about like the turns, the ultimate turn you want to have in your business, and then think about that period of time. Hey, I love 90 days because I love that that 4-turn model for a lot of these outdoor categories that I work in, or whatever it might be. So give yourself a little bit of breathing space there and look at what the business has looked like. But then always say, okay, for what I have behind me, let's look at what I have in front of me.
What's in front?
Well. Yeah. And I always like to use the analogy, like, unless, you use the analogy of driving, and I think that's perfect. Like, when we're taught to drive as kids, we're taught to drive ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yes, let's take stock of what's gone on in the past. Let's learn from that. There's our corrections. But man, if we're not taking a look down the road, if we don't have that mapped out ahead of us, like we're gonna just fall off the side of the road. You know? And I think that's really that's think outside that insular. Like take your head up and look around and look at where you're going, because it's pretty bright. You know, like I really, you know, for me right now, as I said, we started this conversation on an optimistic note, and I really think that there is a lot of optimism out there. We're looking at like consumer demand, like we've never seen before, we've never seen before. You know, and so if we're mapping that out correctly and taking advantage of that, we're going to see some of the highest points in our retail lives over the next 2 to 3 years, without a doubt.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that, you know, really speaks to where we are today. You know, holiday 21 probably isn't going to be as good as holiday 22 or 23, you know, and as economies, you know, start that rebuild and that snowball rolling down the hill, it's only going to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny, you know, I talk with a ski store in Vermont about there's no way this year can be as good as last year. And I'm like, no, I agree. I think it's going to be better. And I think this year's going to be a fraction of what next year is. We've changed what's important to us. We've changed how we spend our time and our money. And it really just does bode well for those stores that are focused on the client. You know, what does my guest, what does my customer want from me? And if we can really focus in on that, man, oh man, the opportunities are endless for us.
Don't you love the buyers that you work with that personify their customer? That know, and you know, I was talking to one of my retailers just recently who has just such a beautiful vision for, like, they have a name, you know, they have a true understanding of who that person is. But they're also seeing how that person is evolving. They're also seeing how that person is changing their attitudes. And that's what's so exciting to me, is because they are. Like, we are all valuing our moments in front of us. We're valuing what we do. We're valuing the quality of our lives right here and today. And it's pushing this whole retail phenomenon to some extent. But don't you love that when they just have that understanding, and that they buy to that understanding because they're truly looking up. You know, so many times I've seen, especially in the outdoor industry, where you buy to your own passions. You buy to the fact that you're a mad skier, you're a mad snowboarder or skateboarder or whatever it might be, and you love and are passionate about the sports, so you buy to that level. But do you truly know who he or she is? And are they the same as you? Are they really that crazy technically and able as you are in that sport, or even that as fashion driven as you are in what might be a ladies' fashion store? Like, do you truly know them? Because now is the time more than ever to know who your customer really is.
Right. And this exercise of knowing who your customer is the point of recognition that 3 out of 5 people that walk through your door fit in that same square box. Now, inside that box, each of those 3 have their own buying persona. And as a retailer, I should be, you know, I have Molly, I have Tracy, and I have Sharon, and here are my 3 customers, and identifying the specific geo, demo, and psycho of each of those 3 that make up my box. You know, I know the brands she likes, I know the sizing that she bought. I mean, size is one of the most overlooked metric in every apparel-based retail. Fast, couture, it doesn't matter. Outdoor, if it's apparel-based, size is the most overlooked metric in retail.
Oh, mate, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because like, how many times have we sat down, you know, and looked, like, driving analytically into the different classes with our buyers, and that their natural habitat is to go to which vendors are doing better than others. Okay, fine. Which brands are doing better than others? How many times do we not talk about size?
Right.
You know, like, it's such a critical element that is so it's so underutilized. You know, most of our retailers have reports they can absolutely drill down by size. Are they doing it?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
you can walk into a retail store and have some understanding of whether a buyer is incentivized on top line sales or efficiency. I can walk into a store and tell you whether a buyer is a good buyer or a bad buyer based on the assortment that's in the store and what's left hanging, right?
Oh,
if
yes.
we're glutted up, I mean, this is the biggest thing that gluts up inventory is the non-selling size, not the non-performing style or color. It's the non-selling size, and it gluts up our inventory. People are like, I don't have any money to buy. No shit, Dick Tracy. You got 17 double XLs. Or you got no mediums in your store. You have no mediums in your store, right? And which vendors fit true to size and which ones don't. And having that kind of a conversation, analytical conversation with your buyer retailers is critically important. You know, what's our size drill down look like? What's our best performing size? And am I keeping that size constantly replenished? Not replenishing sales, but leading my sales. Get ahead of your sales.
Totally comes back around to this conversation of being confident in what you do as a retailer. You know, confidence, because how many times, like I've got to make sure I've got a complete size run so I get everyone. I've had, that gentleman come in and he saw it and we missed it because he was a size 5.5. Like, fair enough. Like, there will be those opportunities, but you cannot be all things to all people. You have to be there for your customer and knowing who they are, without a doubt. Yeah, it's just, I think that's one of the, again, that really comes down to that level of confidence. If you're using the tools properly, if you understand who your customer is, you're going to know brand, you're going to know SKU of color, and you're going to know size.
And Scott, it is just as much about knowing what question to ask as what to analyze. I have to know what question I should be asking. And when I sit down with a buyer or a vendor or a rep, if I'm not asking the right question, I'm never going to get the answers that I'm looking for. You got to know what questions to ask of your inventory, of your point of sale system, of your sales team, of your buying team, of your CFO. I got to know what questions to ask, or I don't get the answer that allows me to make the best decision.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that one of the things that I've noticed too, as we kind of get into this topic, is just the biases that we have. You know, like, so you think about our days in buying, Dan, where it's like, you're getting nagged by your staff because 5 people have asked for the black shirt that we don't have. But you have to be objective and you have to look for truth. And I think truth can be found in the numbers. And I think a lot of times we rely, yes, we need that impact, we need that feedback, but we've got to validate that feedback with reality and truth. And truth comes from a lot of the things that you and I are talking about here. It comes from drilling down into the different SKUs, into the different colors and sizes and vendors that we work with in the business, for sure. Like, don't make sure that it's a balance of art and science. We'll never, ever take away the art, right? We know that our buyers, we know that good retailers are passionate, they're driven, they're enthusiastic, and like we've talked about, they're optimistic. But let's make sure that that they have a level of science in their lives as well, because that they'll keep the balance.
And I you are echoing something that I've talked about forever. You and I've always said this: the best retail business ever is a smooth blend of art and science. It's art; it's the creative side of the business that's blended with the right brushstroke to make this beautiful picture. And that brushstroke is science. It's how we blend colors on canvas, to build a beautiful piece of art. And it's art and science, a beautiful picture. It's art and science together, not one more important than the other. It is how they work together in unison. This is the same in every aspect of your business. You never want to walk in front of your customer. You're always walking arm in arm with your customer. You walk arm in arm with your buyer. You walk arm in arm with your vendor. We might be a half a step ahead of them to lead the path, but we're never walking in front of them and never behind them. It's this arm in arm approach, and art and science have to be the same.
Big time, big time. And you know what? Just in all of this conversation, this is why I love getting together with you, Dan. Is think about the conversation. Think about how excited we get about all this stuff right now, right? And some outside of outside of this world might go, look, this is a couple of geeks talking about this stuff right now because we're both loving it, right? But my word to retailers here is, look for this passion. because this is a pretty fun thing to do. Like the world that we're in, and you know what, I feel like retail gets well and truly underrated in the world of economics, in the world of like choosing the career that you want to be in. Think about how, you know, the kind of excitement that you can get out of making people feel good, making people feel better, making people feel fulfilled, giving them some pleasure and some enjoyment in their day. The kind of stuff that we're talking about right now, this is the model that I like retailers to see and to aspire to, this level of excitement. You know, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of fun to be had. There's a lot of opportunity. And if you have people around you that are like Dan and get excited like this, man, you're going to have fun in this game. You are going to have so much fun in this game.
And this is what we call find something you love and call it work.
Yeah, exactly.
I would happily hang my hat today and go hang out on a retail floor. Man, that is not work to me. That is the most fun aspect of retail, hanging out on the floor. And I feel like that, you know, as entrepreneurs, we have this passion. And if we've chosen to be a retail entrepreneur, we did it for a reason. And sometimes, Scott, we need that reminder of this is why you did this. This is, why did you start your store? Why did you buy the store? Why did you create the store? You know, and it's what retailers have to recognize. That's what they got to get back to and find that passion that makes them feel like, you know, I found something I love and I'm calling it work. It's not really. You
know, we're coming out of a crappy period of being insular. Okay. And I think that one of the things we have to fight as retailers, as individuals, to come out of that insular kind of psycho position and really think about making friends again. You know, like, because like, let's face it, like what makes this all fun is the conversation we're having now is like, we talk about how we really connect as friends and we really, you know, like believe and are passionate about what we do. That's what we're all striving to do in our retail stores. And you know what, like you said, hanging out on the sales floor is really about making new friends, right? It's really about being able to learn and absorb kind of all of these. And you know what, we have been hidden from that. And I feel, you know, like I feel so sad for all of the people that have been held back from others over this time, because that is just the essence of life. Retail lets us do it. And I think we've really got to get back to that now. We've really got to get back to that. The best managers, the best owners that I work with are people that, you know, relish the opportunity to talk to their customers, relish the opportunity to work with their sales floor staff and their buyers, and really try to enhance and make their lives a little bit better. It's time to get back to that, mate.
Oh, Scott, man, oh man, you are preaching to the choir. Listen, I know what your schedule is like. I know how busy you are. I've kept you longer than I said I would. And I just have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of those that listen to the podcast, my mom especially. We have more listeners than just my mom. I'm just kidding. But man, oh man, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Retailers, entrepreneurs out there, if you're looking for a little bit of inspiration, a little way to fill your cup up, you need to go check out empoweredretail.com. Look at Scott. You can email him at scott@empoweredretail.com, right? Not .ca.
Yeah, it's Scott at empoweredretailinc.com with an INC on the end of it. And you can get a hold of me for sure.
Yeah. And I will promise to share this podcast. All of Scott's contact information will be in the weekly newsletter over at retailbycrs.com and thewealthyretailer.com. Get over there, sign up for that newsletter, share this podcast, share this story with any retailer that you know. And if you want more information, you know how to get to me, dan@thewealthyretailer.com. I hope that, Scott, man, the rest of your holiday season turns out exactly the way you want it to. Here's to your retailers, man. Keep fighting a good fight.
Awesome. Thank you, my brother.
Cheers, brother.